Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Hakuouki Demon of the Fleeting Blossom. We are on Okita Souji's route. And so I guess I probably should have noted this when I first started his path, but Souji has 4 endings. Harada only had 1, but Souji has 4 endings, 2 bad and 2 good. In order to basically follow the least amount of steps, I'm just going to follow the guide the way it has it, and they're going to have like 1 bad ending, then 1 good ending, but it's like the lesser of the good endings, and then the other bad ending, and then the best ending. So it's going to alternate bad, good, with the best one being last, and that way there's the least amount of spoilers until the very end of his route. So I hope that makes sense to you all. I don't know how much it really matters to anybody. Let's get back to things here. You can just sit back, relax, and let me read you a story. Okita. It wasn't easy to say what I wanted to, but I pushed forward. You said yourself that it was your decision to drink the water of life, that this was the path you chose, to be a fury.
Maybe I did, so?
His glare didn't waver. If you believe in the path you chose, then shouldn't you be trying to follow it the right way?
I don't know what you're talking about.
He looked down, and I was surprised to see pain on his face.
I am a weapon. All I can do is kill people.
If you think of yourself as a weapon... I took a deep breath. I think that's fine. I didn't, of course, but now is not the time to be debating that particular facet of his personality. I think I understand how you feel. Kondo is really important to you. Okita loved Kondo like a brother. How could he simply sit by and do nothing after seeing someone he cared about nearly killed? Sitting by his bedside all day long isn't going to make him heal any faster, and protecting the magistrate's office isn't going to win the war no matter what you do. Okita must have felt helpless, and so he turned to the one thing that could give him control over life and death he so greatly desired: battle. But please, don't lose sight of who you are. Is it really your duty to let your emotions control you? Is that the kind of warrior you are? Okita knew which path was the right one. He'd only lost sight of it. I hoped perhaps I could guide him back.
Chizuru.
As I spoke, his face flattened to a blank mask.
You keep this up, and I might really kill you this time.
Is my pep talk not working? Okita, you don't... How many times had I heard him say he would kill me? Behind the cold ice of his gaze, I could sense a man who would kill without a second thought. Perhaps this would be the time he finally made good on that threat. Even so, I had to stop him. I won't move. If he let his emotions get the better of him, he would surely regret it later, and I couldn't bear to think of him suffering like that. Even if it meant I had to put my life on the line, I would stop him. If you really want to go, then you'll have to kill me first. His eyes bored into mine, and for several very long seconds neither of us spoke.
You...
He shook his head and looked up at the night sky, exasperated.
Why the hell did you do that?
I can't just forget about you. He laughed.
You are nuts, you know that?
Was that his way of saying thank you? If it was, then that was enough for me. Just as the silence began to stretch to uncomfortable levels, I heard a voice.
This is where you ran off to?
He sounded appalled, but all I saw on his face was worry.
Souji.
He looked around the bloody street as he spoke.
You go out alone, and this is how it ends? This is too much even for you.
Okita shrugged, and looked away from Saito, who seemed not to notice.
Kondo's fever is broken. He'll be fine.
Really? Saito nodded.
Huh, good.
I saw his shoulders relax.
I expect this sort of thing from Souji, but you need to remember to think before you act.
Under Harada's hard gaze, I suddenly remembered that I'd left the compound without permission. But it was for a good cause. I'm sorry. No sooner were the words out of my mouth than we heard the frantic tweeting of a whistle from some distance away.
Looks like they found us. We need to get out of here before they show up.
Yes. We ran as fast as we could toward the Fushimi magistrate's office.
Idiots.
When we returned, Hijikata was waiting for us. He was not pleased. Nonetheless, he seemed relieved to see Okita. He probably was worried just like the rest of us.
I'll let it slide this time, but don't ever do this again. Understand?
Oh, what a coincidence, Hijikata. I was just thinking the same thing. He smiled. Since Kondo's gonna be fine, I thought I'd let you off this time. But don't think that means I forgive you. As he finished, Okita's voice turned suddenly harsh. He then spun on his heel and stalked from the room. The corner of Hijikata's mouth quirked up in a tiny smile. That doesn't look like a tiny smile to me.
If Souji hadn't disappeared, you wouldn't have left, right?
Yes.
Then, this is his fault.
That's right. Perhaps he was right, but I'd still acted on my own and chosen to leave without permission. I've been a bad girl, Hijikata. Punish me, punish me. Sorry about that. Was he going to hold Okita responsible for my own selfish actions?
Now, go get some rest. You haven't slept much today.
Oh. I didn't know how to respond. Hijikata wasn't usually nice. Thank you. I bowed and turned to leave. Nearly at the door, and almost out of earshot, I heard him murmur to himself.
So, it's all my fault, huh?
No, it's Kondo's own fault because he's the one who refused. He's the boss. The next day, I didn't wake up until evening had arrived. I must have been more tired than I thought. It was nearly time for the night shift to begin, so I leapt into my clothes and dashed out of my room. Okita, how's Kondo doing? He has gone to visit Dr. Matsumoto in Osaka. Dr. Matsumoto? He must have been hurt pretty badly if he had to travel to see a doctor. While Kondo was away, however, Hijikata would be acting head of the Shinsengumi. Are you worried? Well, I'm glad he's taking care of it. He's a kind of weird guy, but he's a good doctor. At that, he giggled to himself about some joke I didn't get. It looked as if Okita had calmed down, but only the day before he'd run off on his own. I had to keep my guard up. I hope things will be peaceful tonight. Ah, you jinxed it. No sooner had I spoken than a gunshot shattered the night air. I saw Okita's jaw clench. Okita, no! Several more gunshots went off in succession, almost as if they were provoking us. Sorry. Okita! He dashed by me and ran off toward the sound of the gunfire.
Souji, wait! You should wait yourself, Todo.
He held out a hand to stop Heisuke.
They're trying to draw our men away from the magistrate's office.
But what the hell am I supposed to do? I can't let Souji go out there alone.
We can gather some men to investigate the gunshots, but I want you to remain here to guard. I can't have all the Fury Captains running off and leaving the magistrate's office undefended.
Sanin turned to begin gathering up men for the investigation, but I realized suddenly that if I waited until he was finished, I would lose track of Okita. But you just left without permission a little while ago, you can't do it again! Great, I'm doing it again.
Hey, Chizuru! What the hell are you doing?
Heisuke's voice echoed through the night behind me as I ran out of the Fushimi Magistrate's office into Kyoto. Okita! The city was strangely quiet. The streets were empty. Suddenly, a flash of blue appeared before me. Okita! The blue flash solidified into a streaming coat. Cold eyes glared out from above an arm, holding a sword that carved a line of almost painful light through the night. Did you shoot Kondo? There was someone else there. Kaoru! He glared at me.
Even though we're siblings, the last time you saw me, you called me your enemy. And yet, I'm still Kaoru to you, not you, or bastard, or monster. So patronizing. I can't stand you.
I bit my lip. It was Kaoru who tricked Okita into drinking the water of life, but he was still my brother. I knew he wasn't a good person, but... Okita, on the other hand, seemed to have no such reservations. Answer my question.
You're accusing me without evidence. Humans are so...
He laughed, a cruel, harsh sound.
Ah, yes, I think I do remember. I ran into some men from the Guardians of the Imperial Tomb.
That seemed possible. We'd killed most of them at Aburano Koji, but some of the members of the guard had escaped.
They wanted to avenge Ito. You remember him? The man you deceived and murdered. Unfortunately, they didn't have the courage to attack the magistrate's office. I may have suggested they wait on a particular road on a particular day.
Okita's eyes narrowed to slits. Then you...
Oh, don't misunderstand. I didn't mean for him to be hurt.
You meant for him to die. His smile was taunting. Man, okay, I know this game was made before Code Realize, but it feels like Finis from Code Realize to me. I wonder if Finis was modeled after him.
I just never thought the chief of the Shinsengumi would be such an idiot. Only 3 guards. Why, he was practically asking to be shot.
Okita snarled, and I saw his body tense for an attack. So did Kaoru, and with another cruel grin, he snapped his fingers. From the shadows around us, men suddenly appeared. What? Okita and I stood for a moment, stunned by surprise, and Kaoru took that opportunity to put some distance between us.
Oh, that's a pretty obvious trap.
Oh, somebody's just sour grapes.
Both of them were cynical, twisted grins. I inched my hand toward my sword. I didn't know how much I'd be able to do, but I wouldn't go down without a fight.
Still, you are Okita the Shinsengumi. I don't think we could shoot you quite as easily.
Suddenly, he looked slightly disappointed. What was he up to?
Yeah, our tone's kind of pissing me off, kid. If you got something to say, how about you just say it?
Oh, I wasn't talking to you.
He chuckled and glanced at the men who surrounded us.
I was just suggesting that these fine gentlemen shoot the weaker target first.
Oh! As he spoke, I suddenly realized all the guns had pointed themselves at me.
Coward.
Call me what you want.
The guns exploded with noise. Okita moved.
Ugh.
Suddenly, he was standing in front of me. Okita! Blood was already beginning to pour from his body.
You hurt?
His voice was weak. No, I'm fine. Not a single bullet had even touched me. He'd taken them all.
Good.
He wavered, then collapsed to the ground in a heap. Okita! 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 I grabbed at him desperately. So he could get horribly wounded, but as long as I wasn't hurt, it was okay? No! It's not okay! It's not okay at all! I felt my vision start to blur and realized suddenly that I was crying. My voice broke as I tried to speak. If you get hurt, that makes me sad too. I kept calling his name, but he didn't answer. He was still breathing, but each breath drew a pained groan from his chest. Okita! It was only then that I heard Kaoru's laughter.
What an idiot. Well, he did just what I expected him to do.
You! The blood drained from my face. You were trying to shoot him this whole time, weren't you? Kaoru chuckled again.
Okita got hurt pretty bad because of you, didn't he? Things don't look too good, I'm afraid. How unfortunate.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing, but I had no rebuttal. If I hadn't been there, then Okita wouldn't have been hurt. He never would have been shot, and he might have been able to fight his way out of Kaoru's trap. But I had been there, and now he was dying, and it was all my fault.
You shouldn't have gone running off.
Kaoru's smile was suddenly gone.
You need to suffer more.
At Kaoru's signal, the men drew back.
I won't kill you, either of you, so easily.
His eyes were cold slits, but his voice was gentle and calm.
I'm looking forward to our next meeting, dear sister.
Damn you! The words were out of my mouth before I realized I was saying them. Kaoru turned to look over his shoulder at me and smiled.
If you could just see your face, hear your voice. The more despair and anger you feel, the more you look like me. How could there be any doubt that we're brother and sister?
You feel more like my evil doppelganger. With one last horrible smile, Kaoru and his men disappeared into the night. After what seemed like an eternity, I heard the murmur of voices. It was the Shinsengumi soldiers who'd been sent out to investigate the gunshots. We carried the barely conscious Okita back to the magistrate's office together.
Okita was shot?
Yes. As I explained what had happened, Sanen's frown deepened.
Even if they were using the newest revolvers, that shouldn't be enough to put down a fury.
They probably had those revolvers, I realized. Each man had fired off several shots without reloading.
Even if the wound is deep, it's small. So long as we remove the bullet, the wound should heal.
But Okita's wounds weren't healing. He'd fallen into unconsciousness and continued bleeding even after the bullets were removed. Eventually, even Sanan began to worry. What's going on? Why isn't he healing? When Okita woke up, it was only to take sick with a fever, almost certainly because of his wounds. Hijikata decided the situation was dire enough to merit serious treatment and ordered that Okita be sent to Osaka to be treated by Dr. Matsumoto. Can I go with him? When I asked if I could accompany him, Hijikata was surprised, but after some discussion he gave me permission to leave. He also assigned Yamazaki as our escort. That was why, only a day after he'd been shot, Okita and I set out for Osaka Castle. Chapter 5. March 1868. After arriving at the castle safely, Okita immediately joined Kondo under Dr. Matsumoto's care. Unfortunately, the doctor was unable to determine why his wounds refused to heal. The new year had only just begun when news reached us of the Battle of Toba Fushimi. After a bloody conflict, the Satsuma had won and forced the Shinsengumi to retreat to Osaka. But Inoue didn't come with them. But he'd fought to cover the retreat and been killed by the enemy gunfire. In all my memories of Inoue, he was always smiling. He'd been such a kind and gentle man. I couldn't bring myself to believe he was really dead. Someday, I'd like to think I would see him again. After some discussion, it was decided that the Shinsengumi would leave Osaka and follow Lord Yoshinobu to Edo. At last, after years away, I was back in my hometown. But it was Okita's injuries, not nostalgia, that consumed my thoughts. Dr. Matsumoto had set up a small house for Okita to stay in while he recuperated, and that became our temporary home. Oh. Okita spent most of his time in bed. His injuries still hurt him, and moving at all seemed to be painful. He had been shot because of me. Any mere human would have died then and there. It was nothing short of a miracle that he was still alive. But he was a fury. His wound should have healed long ago. Oh. Okita? His sleeping face twisted in pain. Okita! If it had been a bad dream, I would have woken him up immediately, but this was no nightmare. Even in sleep, his wounds were causing him pain. If I were to wake him up, it would only make that pain harder to take. Gently, I wiped sweat from his forehead. It hurt to see him in so much pain. All I could do was wait and pray. I took his shaking fingers in my hand and held them. Some time later, his eyes slowly fluttered open. Oh. He blinked sleepily, and his gaze drifted over to meet mine. How are you feeling? I tried to keep my voice cheerful, or at least not terrified.
Better than yesterday, I think.
His voice was very weak. Are you sure? You aren't just saying that?
I'm fine.
His mouth twitched into a shaky, wry smile. It was small, but my heart leapt at it.
Is the sun down?
Yes, it is. Do you want to get up?
Yeah. If I just sit on my ass in bed all day, I'm never going to get better.
I helped steady him as he sat up, conscious of his wounds. He winced as one of them twinged, then turned to look at me.
Hey, Chizuru.
Yes?
Can I ask you something?
Anything, anytime. Huh? Okita had never struck me as the sort to ask permission for, well, anything. So why was he asking me, of all people? Sure. He grinned.
Why is it that you're always here when I wake up? Well...
His smile was persistent. Is that bad? He rolled his eyes. I really love his green eyes.
I didn't say that.
His face came closer to mine, and his eyes narrowed slightly as he studied me. I felt my heart begin to beat a little faster. Kiss, kiss? Oh, I just thought you might not be getting enough sleep, because you're too busy taking care of me. Not true? He raised an eyebrow. Really? Oh, don't give me that scowl. I was trying desperately to think of a convincing explanation when I heard a voice from behind me.
She's lying.
Ah! You tattletale.
She's been too busy taking care of you to sleep.
Traitor! Yamazaki!
You think maybe you could tell her to lay off a little, Okita? She needs some rest.
Okita grinned at me again. You'll get some rest. Okita and Yamazaki never got along. I actually never noticed that. In fact, when they weren't at each other's throats, they were trading venomous looks across the table at mealtimes. What? Why do they hate each other so much? But I can't believe you'd both gang up on me like this. Yeah, stop whining. It's nighttime and good girls should be asleep. He moved to try and weakly push me out of the room.
I'll keep an eye on Okita. I want you to get some sleep, alright?
Oh, you'll keep an eye on me, huh? I'm not sure I like the sound of that, pal. He gave a snort of laughter, and Yamazaki thinned his lips. Perhaps he really was feeling better. I was happy they were concerned about me, but I was still worried about Okita. I didn't want to leave him. Oh, what's wrong? Too scared to sleep alone? No. I shook my head. There wasn't really much I could do, even if I did stay with him. It probably wasn't going to be because I'd run myself ragged wiping sweat from his forehead. Maybe it was time for me to get some rest. Alright. Then, just as I turned to leave, Okita's eyes rolled up into his head, and he collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Okita! He moaned unintelligibly, and his breathing was labored. Yamazaki's jaw tightened.
I'm going to go get Dr. Matsumoto.
I think he needs blood. Before I'd even had a chance to respond, he disappeared. The doctor's going to be here soon. All I could do was tuck him back under the covers and wait silently. No, you can give him blood.
Well, his wounds haven't reopened at least.
Dr. Matsumoto sat back with a sigh.
He got up, didn't he? The boy still doesn't have the energy for that. This is Okita's fault, not yours. You can't blame yourself, you understand?
Well, I did try to help him sit up. I could see the concern in his eyes when he looked at me, and I realized that my misery must have been more outwardly apparent than I thought.
Okita still hasn't healed.
Dr. Matsumoto nodded, frowning.
To be perfectly honest, I have no idea why. A normal gunshot wouldn't even slow down a Fury.
Right. I'd seen Fury shot before. They healed almost instantly.
But not so for Okita.
He was silent for a moment.
It must mean that the bullet he was shot with had some sort of effect on him, something that prevents a Fury from healing. At least, that's the only theory that makes any sense.
There was a short pause, and then Yamazaki spoke.
I heard the bullets they pulled out of him were made of silver.
Ah. But still, they took him out of him, unless there's one left. He should have healed, shouldn't he? Silver? Bullets made of silver would be awfully expensive. What reason would anyone have to make silver bullets? Duh! Obviously, they're effective against Furies. And maybe even demons, too.
That must be it, then.
Then, the silver bullets were what was preventing Okita from healing?
Well, even if we know what caused it, that doesn't help us get him back on his feet.
True. We all fell silent. After several long seconds, Dr. Matsumoto cleared his throat.
If Okita were still only a human, then his injuries would have certainly killed him.
If he wasn't a Fury, he'd be dead?
Yes. He's healing slowly for a Fury, but it's still much faster than what a human body could do.
Okita was only alive because he wasn't human, but his Fury nature meant the silver bullets were causing him to suffer. I knew he would have died otherwise, but it still hurt me to see him in pain.
In any event, he'll recover eventually. So long as we leave him alone, he should be fine.
Yamazaki sighed.
So what you're saying is that there isn't anything you can do for him?
I'd like to, but I'm a human doctor.
He was right. Without someone who knew how Furies worked, we were just fumbling in the dark.
Kodo might know something, though.
My father? Right. Of course. My father had been doing research on the Furies. He might have left some notes or something at our house.
He certainly might have. It's just on the edge of Edo, if I recall correctly.
I nodded. Maybe I'll find something useful. Alright, I'll head over there tomorrow.
Then I'll be going with you.
I blinked. Are you sure that's alright?
I was ordered to guard Okita and you. Hijikata was very clear.
I would have preferred Yamazaki to stay behind to guard Okita, but...
You can't be too careful, Chizuru. Take Yamazaki with you if he's willing. I'll stay with Okita until you come back.
In the end, I decided to take Dr. Matsumoto up on his offer. Yamazaki and I left the following morning, promising to return as soon as possible.
So, this is your house?
Yes. Well, my father wouldn't have been very careful if he left stuff here for me to find. It really wouldn't have been very wise, but it will be fortunate for us if there is. Well, anyway, I'm stopping this video here. We'll continue in the next one shortly. Hope to see you there or in some of my other videos. And I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.